The digital world moves fast, but real growth comes from real conversations. This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, I have a really special guest with me, Dan from liftandshifts.com. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself and tell the world why you are awesome?
Well, I'm Dan from Lift and Shift, and I think I'm awesome because I've had a great career path and had the opportunity to work with some amazing business leaders across the world, and hopefully here to share one or two insights over the course of the next hour from everything that I've learned.
That's amazing. Why don't you want to start with one of the key moments or key highlights that you think really made a shift in your career?
Well, early in my career, I was involved in the advertising agency world. Back in the 1980s, there was a lot of bright lights, big city excitement in that industry. There was the view of pitches and presentations and storyboards and TV shoots and client dinners and all that stuff. Made you look like the rock star of business. It was very exciting. But I had, what is probably a fairly common moment in the industry. It all dates back to John Wanamaker and that famous quote that says, I know that half of the money that I spend on advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half. For me, that was a very telling moment, sitting with a client and talking to them about an investment, and they were like, I'm not sure. And it was very hard to draw a direct comparison to, what the expected end results were going to be. And whenever we did have results, it was often very small share gains, and that moved my career ultimately into things like retail and business to business, direct marketing, things involving coupons and measurement and all of that stuff. And I became very excited to be able to demonstrate to clients, the impact we were having on their business.
That's amazing. When you talk about the traditional type of advertising, at one point I was thinking that, maybe that's coming back. Maybe that's something that brands now will invest more because, with the twist of AI and automation, because it will take maybe a few years for people to realize that this is automated, this is fake. So the brands will have to think outside of the box more. So I see that the traditional advertising elements are coming back because I understand that after digital came in, I guess the digital marketing took away some of the need for traditional advertising. But I'm guessing there will be a shift when the skill sets for traditional advertising will come back big time.
Well, I think that traditional advertising will always have a role in establishing the brand's presence, its size, its legitimacy. And you're very right. Digital absolutely changed the medium in which we interact with brands and how we see them. Of course, you used to see things on TV all the time, and broadcast TV isn't the same anymore. Obviously, there's streaming services, but it's the same journey with a different medium. You want to have presence for a brand. You want to tell people your story. And you're very much on track with, AI and how that's going to change how people interact with the brand. And that's very much different now. That's the difference, I think, in marketing today versus when I began my career, is that it is a two-way interaction much more now than it used to be just a singular broadcast proposition.
Exactly. Yeah. And let's talk about Lift and Shift. So now you are part of Lift and Shift. And the question is what were some of the key moments or pivots that brought you to Lift and Shift, and how did the idea for a full service loyalty solution come to life?
Well, in my advertising career, I had the good fortune to work with a mentor of mine, Graham Farrell, who is the CEO of Lift and Shift. And he was instrumental in forming my view on how you interact with clients, the consultative approach, how you help them understand where the opportunities are. And we found ourselves about 13 years ago in a common space of loyalty in working with clients on loyalty programs. And it was very natural for us to come together to create a full service agency that relied on that consultative approach, that helped our clients understand where the opportunities were, to identify them and sort of capitalize on them, and using that very involved methodology that an advertising agency would.
I see. How do you see that? So is Lift and Shift a SaaS loyalty platform? It's a SaaS tool?
Yeah, not at
coordinated?
all. We're sort of the direct opposite of a software as a service proposition. We have our own proprietary tech stack, which we've developed over the last 10 years, that's highly customizable and that we operate on behalf of our customers. So the way that it works is that we'll sit with you as a potential client and speak about your business model and your needs and the strategic imperatives of your business, and then work in consultation with you to create a custom program model that is specific to your industry, your business needs, your brand life cycle, all of those things. And then we will operate that program on our customers' behalf, working with them on a monthly basis to touch base on results and to talk about what's coming down the pipe in terms of new developments in the industry and what they need to be focused on. And then also bringing forward insights from our data and analytics department to help them, as I mentioned, identify opportunities and convert upon them.
I see. So in respect of the audience who are mainly marketing agency owners and SEO agents, specifically SEO agency owners, but the model is kind of the same anyway, how would you sit down with them and what metrics would you ask them to look for to help them with the loyalty program? Because when I think of loyalty program, I really think of products. Like, for example, if I go to Starbucks and I buy, a cup of theirs, then I get some sort of discount if I use that cup rather than getting the paper club, or like they have the gold card and I collect points. So for me, as someone who is outside of this business, right, I think of products more, but how can you apply this to service-based companies?
Well, absolutely. On individual level, most of us have interacted with loyalty programs in our personal lives, going to a coffee shop, going to a retailer, a pharmacy, those sorts of places. And it's about repeat purchases. And so that becomes the metric. And so when you're speaking in terms of the audience for an SEO agency or someone where you're in a service related business, that's what you need to look at, right? What is your repeat purchase patterns? How often do people come back? And where a loyalty program can really make a difference is where purchasing is split amongst many vendors, right? So if you are a service provider and you have a customer who perhaps uses you 60% of the time or 80% of the time when they have a need, there's always an opportunity to get that incrementality, get the extra purchasing from them. And that's the shift in lift and shift, is shifting more business to our clients, client stable. And so that's what we would always want to look for when we're sitting down and talking about where is that opportunity for incrementality, because it's not just about retention on the loyalty side, it's also about growth. And that's one of the key differentiators in a B2B program versus a consumer program, because it's not just about keeping your business, it's about evolving your business, identifying opportunities to grow and increase that customer's value with you.
Yeah. So another episode of mine on this podcast was exactly talking about client success and client success management and how agencies are really lacking this department and they are leaving money on the table. Would you think that your service is similar to client success management, or is it not?
Well, from a perspective of making sure that a client is making full use of your services, that's something that's, as a business operator, very near and dear to my heart. And so you have to understand where the opportunities for additional income growth are with your customer base. In our case, the data and analytics department is exactly one of those opportunities. So you may have an ongoing loyalty program, which is working on a very, I wouldn't say automated basis, because it does take management and there is evolution over time, but it's using the tools at your disposal and the services at your disposal, like a data and analytics department, to identify for your customers opportunity for them to increase their value, right? So you want them to win, and bringing forward products and services on your side that can help identify that and sort of show them the path is a critical element for growing your business.
Yeah, I think it's a great insight, because often service providers really get stuck in the grind, they get stuck in the operation. And I think your services like Lift and Shift or Shift and Lift.
Lift and Shift, yeah.
Lift and Shift helps to maximize what people currently doing, which my next question brings to actual sales data. Because a lot of companies that I realized over this some years of working, like people don't really, they're just happy when they make a sale. And they're just really happy, like, oh, I got the sale, but they sometimes forget to look at the critical data behind it. How long did it take to chase that lead? How much did it cost? So how do you mine sales data to find actionable behavioral patterns? And what are some surprising indicators most marketers like myself overlook?
Well, you're absolutely right. Most companies don't understand, or most certainly don't action, the incredible resource that they have in their own sales data. And that's one of the things that we do very well as an organization, is to take all of the sales data. In many cases, for example, if we're working with a distributor, we're looking at millions of lines of sales information on a weekly basis. And for a lot of clients, that can be an overwhelming task, right? So you use all of the modern tools at your disposal to look at those things. So AI, and we have proprietary algorithms to identify sales opportunities, sales gaps, things like associative purchasing. If you are buying these 4 items in your basket of goods, these other 2 items are natural matches to that. And if you are not purchasing them, how can you use your loyalty program, your rewards program, to suggest to your clients that perhaps they might be interested in these other elements? These are things, again, as consumers, that we have grown accustomed to in the world of Amazon and online shopping, where there's massive amounts of computing power. But many small to medium-sized enterprises, for certain, don't have access to that. So as a service provider, that is one of the great things that we bring to the table, is the ability to unlock the power in that data.
Thinking of some of your clients right now, like what was some of the surprising facts that you found after you digged into their sales data?
Well, I think one of the things that surprises most clients to the greatest degree is the level to which a small change can have a major impact on their overall sales. So one of the things that we can do in our program is to identify sales gaps where someone isn't purchasing an item in that basket of goods, as an example. But a different thing that you can also do is to provide, with a B2B customer, this is very much within the norm, sales school. Purchase X number of dollars this month and receive some level of reward. And it doesn't have to be a very far stretch, right? So it could be something as small as a 3 to 5% increase, which is highly attainable for the customer and the member inside of the program. But when you aggregate that across a customer base of hundreds or even thousands, the cumulative impact on the overall business and the health of the company is amazingly undervalued. And so when you're able to demonstrate that and bring that to your client and show the impact of that, one of the things that we all often do is talk about the lead in to any initiative like that and what the purchasing patterns are, and experiencing levels of growth that are, fairly normal, 5 to 8% with these customers. And then if you just ask them for that extra 2 points, go to 10%. And you can see the reaction and who has reacted and what the value is to the business. And when you sit down after the fact and show them those results, it's an extremely gratifying experience to have that meeting, because their eyes become open to the power of using their own data. Just understanding something small, like what an extra $200 per customer would do. And so that's something that I think is very much undervalued, just those small moves and how they can become big wins.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think this tactic is really helpful for listeners, because sometimes they just don't know where to start. Maybe a head of sales or a head of marketing sits down and look at all these data points and just like, damn, I don't even know where to get started. So I think, thank you for sharing this method. And I think it will be very helpful for everyone who is listening to this.
Very glad to do.
What are the most effective reward structures you've seen for driving mid-funnel or to repeat purchase behavior for agencies?
For agencies. Okay. Well, we don't do a lot of targeting directly to agencies, but let me tell you our approach. And I think that maybe we could translate that into the world of helping them to market for agencies. So the one thing that's very much different about a B2B loyalty or rewards program from a consumer-based program is the ability to discuss things like sales and purchasing and targets. And so for us, the most effective strategy in a B2B environment is a performance-based strategy. Now that can be volume-based, right? Increase your purchasing by X number of dollars, or item-based, add this extra item into your basket of goods, this service into your basket of goods. Or it can be growth-based, right? Year-over-year differences. Last year, we were very happy to serve you to this level. If you were to increase it by X number of percent, we can give you this benefit, this reward. And the benefits can be not just financial. right? So it doesn't necessarily just have to be things like merchandise or gift cards or those things that you traditionally would associate with a reward program. It can also be services and exclusive access to additional benefits, front of the line customer service, free shipping, those sorts of things, extra add-ons to the services that they already have so that they become more entrenched in your value proposition. And I think that's where agencies could certainly benefit from it, right? There are many services available, and you may have customers that are only taking advantages of part of it. So if you add on this additional service, we'll increase you from the basic entry level to our premium level as a valued, loyal customer of ours. And I think that's where, agencies could certainly benefit from that thought process.
I want to share with you this, like now that you explained, I used to be operation manager in an SEO company. So, but not for too long actually, because as you see, I love marketing more. But being an ops manager in an agency really helped me to focus on clients that make us more or less. So internally in an agency, after a while, once people are more established, they should sit down and say, you know what, Dan's company makes us 50 grand a year versus Annie's company only does 10. So now how are we going to treat these two people without them knowing? Because if somebody treats, somebody differently, like it's a very, very it's not good.
Absolutely.
But internally, you have to allocate resources based on that. But what you're saying is that by people spending more, they will get more premium feeling. As a result, they will stay as customers. So it's more of how we communicate that externally. Because internally, we probably already established that, like, okay, one client makes us more, one client makes us less. Let's kind of set boundaries according to that. But one thing I haven't mentioned is, like, it really sounds like that service-based businesses are incentivized to create a productized service rather than just on the fly. You know what? I can do this too. Yeah.
Sure. And I think, there's lots of things that you said there that really indicate opportunities. And it starts with, if you're valuing your clients different, if Dan has a different value to you than Annie does, understand what is the difference. How are you valuing those two clients differently? And what could we offer to Annie in order to make her a more valuable customer? And maybe it's services that have less of an operational load in some cases, or maybe it's the opportunity to leverage products and services that you're already using in order to make things more efficient. But it's analyzing the current state and understanding where you want to go with that I think a lot of, again, small to medium enterprises and service-based agencies don't do. They don't take that moment to understand what's the difference between a really valuable business and good business, and how can you move your good business to really valuable. And that's where that productized sort of thought can come in, is the ability to be able to demonstrate to someone, here's something that you're not currently taking advantage of that we can bring to you, right? As an overall product as a service proposition.
Amazing. We are slowly coming to the end of the show, and I want to understand you more. I'd like to get to know you more because I feel like you have a lot of experience in the industry. And over this talk, just 20 minutes, I'm like, man, he went from traditional advertising to full on, how to say, almost like revenue optimization for
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. How did that change? How does it feel? Do you miss being the crazy creative with the storyboard?
Well, that's one of the great benefits of being a marketing services vendor is we're always seen as a little bit crazy from our clients' perspective. But when the outside of the box suggestions that you're making are backed by data and learning and experience, you have the opportunity to expand the way that they think. And that can be a very rewarding experience. So yeah, I do sometimes miss the bright lights, big city of the TV shoot world, but for sure the value that I'm bringing to my clients, replaces that tenfold. It's very rewarding.
Wow. And how long were you in traditional advertising before you changed to revenue optimization loyalty programs?
Well, I'm a little, I'm going to date myself and embarrass myself a little bit, but just over 20 years.
You've been in traditional advertising for 20 years? Or
I was in traditional advertising for 20 years, and I've been doing loyalty and direct now for close to 16 years. Yes, I am dating myself now.
Wow. That's amazing. Man, would you like to join my aspiring CMO show now? Like, where can I interview for,
Oh, maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
like, let's just jump the room to like, let's talk advertising. That's amazing. How did you, wow. What transferable skills do you have from traditional advertising today? Like, what are the key things? Like, let's switch to the nerdy marketer side now, guys. Let's just think like creative for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 minutes.
Very much true to our identity as a marketing services agency. The very first thing that we transferred over was that consultative approach, right? Working in collaboration with your clients to understand their business needs. What do they need to develop? And then bringing best practices to the table, right? So that's something that I learned, I mentioned before, sitting across the boardroom table from some of the brightest minds in business in North America, a way that they work collaboratively. So that's a transferable skill. From a technology standpoint, it's always one thing building on top of another. I mentioned coupons in the old days. We used to track coupons, right? And you would send those out in the mail, and then people would bring them into their stores, and the point of sales machines would scan them, and then you'd see the numbers all come back in. And it was a very laborious and manual process, but it trains your brain to start to think about the connectivity of behavior, purchasing behavior, and making suggestions, and then looking at results and learning from that and refining, right? A/B market testing, all of that crazy marketing geek stuff, all of that transfers very well into the world that we live in now. And when you're using now more sophisticated tools, I mentioned AI and algorithms and all of that stuff. One of the biggest misconceptions about AI is that it will do everything for you, right?
Oh, no, it doesn't.
The reality is, though, that AI, I think, as a potential, is going to make experts such as you and I and all the people who are listening much more effective at their jobs, right?
Oh, yeah.
It'll allow you to analyze greater amounts of information, to act on it more quickly, to react with more meaningful levels of personalization with your customers, right? And so when you start with those kernels of learning about understanding purchase cycles and behaviors and getting smarter and learning, and then take that and move it into more powerful tools and more ways to identify things and react on them. The potential is absolutely unlimited in terms of the impact that you could have in your client's business.
It's amazing. So basically collaboration skills, just to summarize the transferable skills, collaboration, and how do you say like things stack onto each other, like chain thinking?
I'd say that it's collaboration skills and understanding cause, effect, analysis, and evolution, right? It's a cycle of activity that you can apply to many different disciplines in the marketing world.
Yeah, amazing. I'm very impressed with everything you have shared today, Dan, and I'm very grateful that you joined the show. And if people would like to reach out to you, how can they find you?
You can find us online at lift-and-shift.com, or we're all over social as well. So we're on LinkedIn and Facebook and Insta and TikTok and all that good stuff too.
Awesome.
Just look for Lift and Shift. We're out there.
Amazing. I will link it down in the description below, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.